Hello, and welcome to part two of creating Victorian houses illustrations, inspired again by the artist Mary Blair. And today you will need a glue stick, scissors, black marker, pencil, something to color with. These two handouts in front of you, it is okay to bring them right up on your Chromebook. You do not have to print them out. And your little house that you created out of simple shapes last lesson. You will also need a background and 2 pieces of colored scrap paper. Again, it is okay if you do not have access to construction paper. You can take a simple sheet of white paper and color it all the color that you need and use that paper that way. And I really think that would look really neat because of the textures that it would give if you just had some color or some pre-painted paper. All right, so the first thing that we need to do today is we need to take a look at our background. So we are going to be focusing on our background first, and then we will move on to adding our house to our background. So I'm just going to collect these supplies and put them to the side and grab my coloring supplies and my background paper. So because we are drawing a house and houses are part of landscapes and constructed environments, we need to include in our illustration that vital important line. And that line that I'm talking about is our horizon line. So the first thing that I'm going to do is towards the bottom of my paper, I am going to draw a line that goes from one side to the other side. I'm going to use a little bit of a darker green so you really can see that pop on the video. All right, so I drew my line. Now I'm going to take I have art sticks. You can use crayons, markers, paint, colored pencils, whatever coloring supplies you have. And I am just going to fill in my land with color so that my land is separated from my sky. And as you can see, I chose purple today. Your sky can be any color you want. This is an illustration, so it's really just about having fun with it, okay? So I have that all nice and colored in. Now I'm going to add some other details to my sky. Now, some things that we see in the sky, clouds, birds, sun, rain, you really can pick and choose what you want to do for today. I am just going to add some clouds. So I'm just going to draw some clouds and fill them in. And for this part, I'm using a chalk pastel. It is completely okay. Whatever coloring choices you have. If you do have access to sidewalk chalk at home, sidewalk chalk will work as well. And the neat thing about working with chalk is that you can take your finger and you can blend it and make it look really fluffy. So our clouds are nice and fluffy. So I've got a couple clouds in the background. And now my background, I think I'm going to add one more over here just to follow that rule of thirds in composition, have it kind of coming off page a little bit. So I have my background completed. It took me just a few minutes, shouldn't take you too long, and now I can focus on my house. So look at how nicely that house sits on the land with the background. The only thing is that I don't want to see my building blocks. So I am actually going to be flipping my house over, and this is where we're going to start. So for this portion of our house, I'm going to pull our background right out of there, and I am going to grab these 2 handouts. These handouts are going to be the most important parts because these really give us the details that go into a Victorian house. Again, Victorian house should have a porch. It should have multiple levels. It could have a tower, as you can see in all 3 of these, or all 4 of these. It can have a turret on the top of that tower. It also should have lots of windows. It should have different sidings and gingerbread details. So looking at my house right now, it just looks like a shape. So I am going to take some time to use my scrap paper to build upon this shape to really give it some dimension. So today we're focusing first on shapes, and then we'll move on to lines. So the first thing that I am going to do is I am going to um, cut out some of the details that I want to add. So going back to our reference images for this project, that's these windows, the pillars, your roof line, the eyes for our illustration. Those are all the things that I am working on. So I am actually going to start with the door and the porch. So for the porch, I just have a white piece of paper, and I'm going to cut out a strip because I want a nice long porch. So I'm going to cut out just a thin strip of paper, and then I am going to glue this paper right here on my porch and my glue. And it sticks off a little bit. That's okay. I'm going to fix that in a second. So I'm going to take and glue on that right there, and that will help me to separate my first floor from my second floor. I'm going to pull these right out of the way so we can just focus on this one. So now I'm going to take my scissors and I'm going to trim the edges. There. And then I'm going to cut 2 more fairly thick strips of white paper, and those are going to be the pillars that surround my front door. I'm going to glue those down. All right, so I got some rectangles and lines going on. For my front door, I'm using green paper, and I am going to kind of eye up how big my door is going to be, and I'm going to cut a rectangle. Cut out my rectangle, and yeah, that's about a good size. I'm going to maybe make it a little bit skinnier. And then I am going to take a look at my references, and I see that we have lots of different options for the doors and the pillars, and I really like this one, so I think I'm going to go with that option, and I'm just going to round the top of the door. And I'm going to glue that part down. I also see that it's got a little triangle on top, so I'm going to actually cut that triangle out of paper, out of my scrap paper, and glue the triangle right there on top of my door. So there I have all the shapes for this door here. I have my arc on the door, I have my pillars, and I have my triangle on top. So now I can start taking a look at my windows and some of my gables. So I'm going to be using yellow paper for my windows, and I'm just going to cut it into a strip, and then I'm going to measure kind of how big I want it to be. So I'm going to have one window there. I'm going to clean up my cut right there, and then I want these two to be the same size, so I'm going to pair them up, make another cut. So now I have 2 windows on each side of my porch. I want to have my second story. It's going to have 2 long windows there. And then I'm going to put 2 windows here on my tower that's in the middle. All right. One for my tower. Oh, and those are a little too big, so I'm going to thin them out and shorten them a bit. Just clean up my lines. Yeah, that's better. Okay. Perfect. So now I have my windows all cut out. They're all rectangles. I like the way they look and they fit within the house. So I'm going to spend some time gluing them down. And you can really play with moving your shapes around until they look exactly how you want them to look as far as spacing. Have fun with it. And then when you like the way it looks, go ahead and glue it down. Okay. So I also have some scraps here, and I think I am going to add this one. I like the way it fits up there on that roof line at the top of the turret. Add that there. There. All right, and the last thing that I want to do today is I want to cut out my eyes and glue those down. So if you look at our example, the eyes are kind of at the top of each of our houses. So I'm just going to take that white paper I was working with. I'm going to grab my scissors, cut out a rectangle, fold the rectangle in half, and then I am going to cut that arched shape, and I have 2 matching eyes, and I am going to put my eyes, let's see, where do I think I like them? You know what, they're a little too big, but I think I'm going to put them right at the top. I just need to make them much, much smaller. So I'm going to cut these down. Again, still keeping that arch. And that's better. Perfect. All right, I like the way that looks. Again, once you like the way your shapes look, you can glue them down. All right. All right, artists. So at this point, I am going to stop and take a break. I'm going to let all of my shapes that I just glued down dry. And when we come back together for part 3, we are really going to be diving into lines and making this house built of blocks and shapes into a detailed Victorian home.